Hey there, April here. Welcome back to Fletcher House and Garden. As you can see, we've got a little bit different setup. You can probably tell that from my background. We are in the kitchen here at the Fletcher House. I wanted to do something a little different with you today, if that's all right. I think you'll enjoy it, so stick with me. I'm serious. You can tell because I've got my apron on, but it's gonna be fun. So get yourself a drink. I've got some tea here, ready to go, but sit back and enjoy a new and hopefully favorite recipe. Hey there, I'm still here. I changed the camera angle so you could see what I was doing. I figure it's more important for you to see the counter than to see my face. So it's morning here. I need to get some breakfast ready. The boys are not up yet. The boys being my husband, Brad, and our dog, Oliver. They're not up just yet. But what I typically do when I need a quick and easy breakfast that I know everybody's going to like, no fuss, I go to the cinnamon roll recipe. Now, I consider it semi-homemade. It's not completely homemade, but it's special to me because I got this recipe from my mom. Now, I have kind of tweaked it a little bit and added to it. I think for good reason. I'll show you that. But we stumbled upon this recipe a few years ago when they were living in the country out in Mississippi. And I was visiting them. It was definitely the winter time. I want to say it was probably around Christmas. And we were up, getting the day started. They were starting a fire in the living room, cold day, getting ready for it. And we were wanting breakfast. And being out in the country like they were, you couldn't just run down the street to McDonald's or something, or even run down to the street to a grocery store. So it became a circumstance of not being prepared to make breakfast, but hey, what do we have in the fridge? What do we have in the pantry? So that's how this recipe was born. Mom came up with it. I loved it. And like I said, I've added to it. So I'm gonna walk you through what I'm doing here. It's really easy, and I'll even have like a recipe card at the end if you want to screenshot it, but I hope you enjoy this. So let's get started. I'm gonna take my face out of frame so you can see the counter. What I've got here, I've got a couple of pieces of parchment paper. I like these pre-cut sheets. They're 9x13. I've got one here for the counter where I'm going to do my work. Obviously, you could clean your counter, put a little flour down, and you wouldn't need parchment. And then I also have one here on my baking sheet. It's just easy cleanup is what I prefer. So, what else? Oven mitts, because eventually we will be using the oven. Now, supplies. What you're going to need for the actual cinnamon roll. First and foremost, I have the Pillsbury Crescent dough sheet. I prefer to use this. For the recipe that we're going to do, you just need 1 can. It will make 8 cinnamon rolls typically. If you cannot get a hold of these sheets, you can absolutely just use regular crescent rolls. That's how this recipe started, was just regular crescent rolls, but I do like the sheet version. It's easier to use. You don't have to like mess with the perforations and stuff, so yeah. So I've got that. What else do I have? Cinnamon, just some good old ground cinnamon. Got that ready. I've also got some brown sugar. I don't know if you can see that in there. I am using light brown sugar. There's not a hard rule on this. If you prefer the dark brown sugar, by all means, please use it. But this is what I had on hand. I typically buy the light brown sugar. What else for the actual cinnamon rolls? You'll also need some butter. So I just implore you, use whatever butter you have on hand. You don't need anything fancy. What we keep is this spreadable butter. We get it at Kroger. And I just took 2 tablespoons of this. And as you can see here, I put it in a bowl, put it in the microwave for about 15 seconds just to get it melted. So this is definitely a scenario where you want melted butter, not softened, but you want melted. And as you can see here, you're going to need a basting brush. I mean, that's preferred. If you don't have one of these though, like in a pinch, I've used a big tablespoon. You can do this recipe if you don't have this brush, but it is helpful. I think that is it for the actual cinnamon rolls. Now for the icing, you're going to need powdered sugar. As you can see, April does baking. She keeps a lot of powdered sugar on hand because you never know. Powdered sugar. And this is optional, but some milk. And again, whatever your preference is, we keep this low-fat milk on hand. But if you want to use soy milk, whole milk, 2% milk, whatever, you know. And it is optional. I'll get to that point in a minute, but it is optional. So let's go ahead and get started. First and foremost, you need to preheat your oven. Now on here, I don't know if you can see this, it says to preheat to 350. Yeah, 350 if you have a non-stick cookie sheet, or 375. I typically preheat mine to 375, but your preference. However, you would typically cook a crescent roll or bake a crescent roll. That's what you need to do. Let me go ahead and open this. And I am old school. Whoops. I definitely beat this on the counter. Whoops. Oh, I didn't have to. But usually if the seam was still tight, I would beat this on the edge of the counter. All right, but this just popped right open. Okay. I have washed my hands before starting. I should have specified that. Now this is actually torn a little bit. That's okay, we can fix it. I'm just gonna get this out of the can and onto my parchment paper here. All right, let's get this rolled out. Now this will typically be a little bit longer than my actual parchment piece. That's okay. I have cleaned my counter before starting this, so it's okay if it hangs over. Well, no, this one's actually gonna be pretty good. Okay. So I don't know if you can see, I do have a tear there. I'm gonna fix that. I'm just gonna kind of mend that a little bit. Okay. And as you hopefully you can see, let me turn this. This is all wonky, like it's not straight, even. That's okay. You don't have to fix that. It'll all work out in the end. So this is one of the steps that I have added to the recipe. You take this butter that's melted, right? You take your basting brush, and I'm just gonna coat the top of this. It doesn't have to be a super heavy coat. I try to do a little bit on the lighter side. I will try to get here where I needed to mend the dough, but I just, you know, relatively light coat of butter on here. And what this butter does is it helps the cinnamon rolls, when they're baking, they come out nice and crispy, and they have that nice like golden brown texture or color to them. It's great. I say crispy, they're not like burnt, but I mean, there's a difference. You can tell if you haven't done this. So, okay, that's pretty good there. And I'm gonna set this aside, and you may say, April, there's a bunch of extra butter. We're gonna use this as part of the icing. So just stand by, take a drink of tea. Bear with me, keeping it real here. Next thing I'm gonna do, cinnamon. There's no measurement for this. It's all your preference. Hey, buddy. Oliver's right here. Hey, boo-boo. Hey, what you doing? All right. But I'm just gonna start sprinkling the cinnamon on top of our crescent dough sheet. This is on top of the butter. And it's all just personal preference. I try to evenly distribute this as best as I can. But I don't, unless you just open up unless you just open up this jar and put the whole thing on here, I don't think you're gonna mess this up. All right, that looks pretty good. I'm gonna leave this out because we will use it for the icing as well. Okay, next up is the brown sugar. I keep mine in a Ziploc bag just because it can dry out sometimes if you're not careful. And like I said, I have washed my hands. If this grosses you out, you could also grab like a fork or a spoon. But I'm just gonna take a little bit here. Just grab a little bit, and I'm gonna start sprinkling on top of the cinnamon. And again, I'm gonna try to evenly distribute this. You grab a little bit more. That looks pretty good. Get that all in. All right, and that is all I do for like the inside or the filling of the cinnamon roll. Pretty simple. Simple but effective. So at this point, I'm going to start rolling this into a roll. So it does not have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be super tight. You know, just try to keep it as even as you can. All right, here we go. So there it is, there's a roll. Let me see if I can get it where you can see it, okay? And I do just kind of like, it doesn't have to be perfect, but I do try to make sure the ends are kind of even, not even, but just kind of get them together there. All right, this is looking pretty good. So now it's time to start cutting them. What I've got here is just a little knife. I'm gonna start cutting it. And I cut probably every 3/4, almost to an inch. So about, and I know it's hard for you to see, but about 3/4 to an inch. So I'm gonna just start cutting. If you wanted this to go farther, because like I said earlier, this usually makes about 8 cinnamon rolls, you could probably cut them, I don't know, I really think about 3/4 to almost an inch is the sweet spot. I don't know if you could cut them smaller than that. Hey buddy, can y'all see Oliver? Maybe he's like right there. But I usually get 8 rolls. Sometimes I might get 9, but it's usually 8. Let's see, 2, 4, 6. Yeah, I'm gonna get about 8 right here. All right, so I don't know if you can see, but I've got 8 rolls there. All right. This next step is going to sound weird. I can't explain it, but it does make a difference. My hands are clean. If you're not sure if your hands are clean, wash your hands, but my hands are clean. I'm gonna take these, I'm just gonna mash them down, okay? I'm just gonna mash them down. And then I'm gonna start putting them on my pan. All right, I know you're probably gonna be like, April, why do you have to mash them? I've noticed it helps the filling, like the brown sugar and the cinnamon. It helps that prevents it from falling out when you're trying to transfer this to the baking sheet. And also it helps them bake into more of like a cinnamon roll shape. So I'm just gonna smash these. Get these onto my pan and give me just a moment here and I will move my baking sheet where you can see it. Oops, and see, like this is what's trying to come apart. So if I mash it, it'll help that. Now, as you're watching this, let me know, have you made this recipe before? It's something, like I said, that Mom came up with in a pinch. I loved it. I've continued making them to this day. If you have a similar recipe, I'd love to know. There's a lot of things you can do with it. I have tried doing like pumpkin pie spice in there, some extra nutmeg in there, some extra allspice if you want. I have tried putting mini chocolate chips in here. I gotta tell you, it was good, but it was too rich. It was too much. So to me, this is like the classic version, and it's so good. So here it is. And a couple of things to do before you put it in the oven. You still have some of this butter. It's starting to set, but it's still, you know, malleable, usable. What I like to do is take a little bit of it and hit the tops of these cinnamon rolls. Again, helps them kind of brown as they're baking. They get little crispy edges. Oh, it's so good. I'm saying crispy, crunchy, trust me, they don't burn. It's just, you know, like when the edges are kind of crispy, but the actual interior of the roll is still soft. Not soft, but you know, kind of like melt in your mouth. They're good. All right. And then if you'd like to, I do this, it's optional. I want to put just a little extra, a couple extra taps of ground cinnamon here on top. Can do. Now these will bake, let me see, I think 11 to 12 minutes. 10 to 13, and I usually do the 10 minutes. So I will put these in the oven, do 5 minutes, take them out and rotate them, put them back in for another 5, and then we will apply the icing. Now let's do the icing. I'm gonna use this bowl. It's still got some butter in there. We're gonna use the butter. I'm done with this basting brush though, so I'm gonna go ahead and put that in the sink. So let's see. I'm done with the butter. I need cinnamon. I need the milk. And I need the powdered sugar. I need another tablespoon. Give me a second here. The one I had set out over there is covered in butter, so. All right, like I said, you've got some leftover butter in here. I don't worry about how much is there, okay? I just take 3 heaping tablespoons, and I mean heaping, and I add to this bowl. At least 3. Sometimes I do 3.5. Today I'll do about 3.5, okay? All right, then I'm gonna take a fork and just kind of start mashing this. I love making icings with the powdered sugar base. They turn out so well. But you have to be careful. Your ratio of like liquids to powdered sugar, oh man, you can mess it up real quick. So I'm mixing this together. I don't know if you can see this. And sometimes I don't need to add more sugar. Sometimes I need more sugar. Sometimes I need more milk or whatever. Today, I need some more sugar, I think, just to get the right proportions. You see that there's still quite a bit of butter in there. So let me get another heaping tablespoon. Oops. And yes, I do mix this with a fork, just so if I need to break up some little bits of sugar, I can. All right, now it's starting to get kind of the consistency. I could honestly stand to add a little milk. That's how I know we're in a good spot. So before I add a little milk, I'm gonna add some more cinnamon. Or add some cinnamon to the icing. So you'll have cinnamon in the actual roll, and then you'll have cinnamon in the icing. And this is just personal preference. See? And then I'm gonna add just a touch of milk. You could use water, okay? You could use water. I tend to favor the milk. All right, that should be plenty. Because it's starting to look like a paste. I don't want this to be too soupy, where when I try to put it on the cinnamon roll, it doesn't stick to the pastry, but I want it to be firm. I guess there's just the perfect balance. If you bake, you know what I mean. You want it to set up well on the cinnamon roll. All right, this is looking good. So when I get done, I was trying to hold this bowl close to the camera because when I get done, this is like a light brown icing. Hopefully you can see that. And that's from the cinnamon. Yeah, there you go. Now you can see it. And see, good consistency there. Or I can scoop it up in a spoon and get it on top of the cinnamon rolls. But it's not like soup or broth or, you know, equivalent. It's good consistency. So this is ready. I'm gonna set it aside and then I'm gonna clean up a little bit while the cinnamon rolls finish baking. When they are ready for the icing, I'll bring you back. Welcome back. Look what I have. Hopefully you can see. These are on a cute little snowflake serving platter. I figure 'tis the season, why not? We've got 8 golden brown cinnamon rolls that are ready for the icing. So let's get to it. You remember we made this? All right. So I'm just gonna start, let's see. I like to keep these close together just so if any of the icing kind of overflows, it can go to good use. It can go to another roll. Okay, so I'm gonna start in the middle here. There's no rhyme or reason to this. I do try to use all of the icing that I make, unless it's just overkill, which to each their own on whether or not icing is overkill, or at what point icing is overkill. I forgot to mention earlier that I have made this recipe same as how we made it today, except I will take zest from an orange, add that to the filling, and then I'll put a little orange juice in with the icing, make orange rolls. Very good. I have not made that with lemon yet, but I bet it would be good. I should try that sometime. All right, all of the cinnamon rolls have a first coat at this point, first pass. So I'm gonna go back and see who else might need a little extra. Again, I don't like to waste this icing if I can help it. And you don't have to be perfect. Like I just put it on the cinnamon roll. The rolls themselves are warm enough that they'll help distribute the icing. So you don't have to worry about putting it on the cinnamon roll a certain way. I mean, obviously aim for the top of the cinnamon roll, but from there, just let gravity do its thing. All right. The cinnamon rolls are ready. I usually serve them with either a cake, like server, or if you have any tongs, like tongs are good too, but easy peasy. If you were not filming like I am today, it'll take you about 15 minutes, about 5 minutes for prep, 10 minutes to bake, and then you have cinnamon rolls. This was 1 can of the crescent roll dough, so if you want more than 8 cinnamon rolls, obviously just buy more cans and kind of go from there. I will put a recipe card at the end. I'll also see if I can add one to the description, but if you make this, please let me know. I love it. It's simple but effective, to the point that now I will not buy the pre-made cinnamon rolls. I want these because to me they just taste better. Maybe because they're semi-homemade, or maybe because they make me think of my mom. But I hope you enjoyed today's content, something a little different. And until next time, I hope you're doing well, enjoying the winter season. I hope you take care. Bye now.